Right here is an 800 dust deck. I'm gonna see what's the highest rank I can get by only using this deck. Will I be stopped by meta decks, or is this smart enough to win? If this deck needs a chance, I'm gonna have to play out of my mind. I'm also gonna give you 5 tips that will help you in your Hearthstone game, so make sure you watch the whole thing to catch them all. Unlucky for me, I'm going against a paladin that played first day of school and a secret, but luckily for me, I've never had a turn on board like this in ages. Yeah, I did need to skip turn 2, but that doesn't matter when you have skill like me. Wait. No, skill like me. See, I am so good I even broke the game. That's all my skill manifesting in that ball. And yeah, sure, it did help that my opponent did misplay a bit, but that doesn't matter. Look at this turn 5 board. And this is what this deck is all about. The Smork, the weapons, and the Murloc package. As you can see here, it could even beat Secret Paladin, one of the top decks in the meta. I would go to even say he had a decent opening. And sure, I probably had the best opening I could have had. Anyways, first game 1, woo! Now that we're past rank 3, I thought we'd check in with another game. It's an aggro v aggro matchup. I'm not exactly looking forward to other players' board presence. I also didn't get a good mulligan, so hopefully I can get some good draws. Why? So I'd like to say that it's a pretty even position. He's even going to play another element. Oh, wait. Well, aggro v aggro is just another board control matchup, so let's just control that board and see. Oh, he decided to do the same. Yeah, I think this is a great example of what happens when you draw absolute garbage. I only have 2 cards in my deck that cost 4 mana, and what are the chances I use both of them by turn 4? But the good thing about this deck is the games are quick. That montage I showed earlier, that took 20 minutes to play 3 games. That's the same amount of time as one control Warlock game, which means you can win back-to-back games super fast. Or lose back-to-back, but not me. I was too sad after playing that game and I stopped playing for the day. Alright, day 2, who's ready for another match? Oh my... Okay, I wanted to stop at this game because I think it's a great time for the first tip. Tip 1, know your win conditions. I'm going against the Warrior, you know, the class that destroys most aggro decks. At the start of the game, it's pretty standard. A 1-drop card, he armors, and then I'll get some value out of... Okay, never mind then. Alright, who's ready for my first misplay? So here, I had a Tidecaller and I missed 1 attack on it. That might not seem like a big deal, but that 1 damage almost cost me the game. If you misplay, who cares? You got 1 play out of the whole match. You'll probably misplay more like I did. Back to the teaching point, I'm going to ask you, what's the win condition for my deck? Ready? Okay, it's easy. You hit him really hard in the face and you try to do it before he deals with the board. But here's the more complicated question. What is the Warrior's win condition? Normally in a control deck, it's to play something like Cthulhu and win that way. But since I'm an aggro deck, his win condition changes. Now his win condition becomes to survive until I run out of steam. For this deck, I'd say it's to use his armor and removal to clear my board. Specifically, I'd say this card. Now here, I made a huge misplay, and luckily for me, I didn't get punished. Now, it doesn't look like it, but what do you think it is? Comment below what you think. Ready? I should not have hero powered here. And why is that? Let's imagine a scenario here. The Warrior's at 2 health and I have 3 minions on the board. Now if he plays Rancor and Hero Power, he gains 6 armor and I only have a 3-1 left on the board. Now to win the game, I'd only need to draw 1 damage, and that's more likely than you think. But since I Hero Powered and he played Rancor, he would have been at 10 total health. But all the cards in your deck deal 3 damage, so it's okay to misplay here, you say to yourself. But look at this next turn.
Oh no!
Now he's at 1 health. 2 things here. If I didn't miss that 1 damage earlier, I would have won. So, whoops. Second thing here is that he's at 3 health right now. If everything went the same, but he had 2 more armor, I definitely would have lost. That's why I didn't play Murloc Tidecaller here, because I knew if he somehow top-decked Rancor, I would have immediately lost with no chance of coming back. But with that 2-3, I at least stood a little bit of a chance. You'd be surprised with how many cards can flat out deal damage in this deck. I thought I was getting lucky, and I probably was getting lucky. But if you keep in mind what your win conditions are, sometimes you can go face and squeak out those narrow wins. Anyways, that's enough talking for me. I'll see you in gold. Wait, it happened again. Alright, who's ready for tip number 2? This one's about playing the aggro v aggro matchup, so listen carefully because this applies to all aggro decks. Tip number 2, in the aggro v aggro matchup, you're looking to control the board. Basically, in an aggro v aggro matchup, whoever has board control the whole game will win the game. It doesn't matter who has the better smorking abilities, because in the aggro v aggro, the aggro deck that has the most board control can get the constant damage more consistently. Now this goes hand in hand with the previous tip involving knowing win conditions. For Murloc Shaman, I know they have 2 cards that will totally destroy me. Firemancer Flurgo, and nothing can stop us. But good thing Firemancer Flurgo is a legendary card, it's going to be hard to draw. Luckily for me, compared to a Murloc Shaman, I know this deck has better hard removal than them. So that shows how I'm able to deal with board control with this deck. Unless one side sweeps with an amazing hand, there's a good chance the matchup will turn into a top deck game. And you better hope you get some really good top decks from that. Most aggro decks will run a card like Voracious Reader that help them draw cards, but I wanted to make this deck cheaper, so I cut it out. You can put it in if you want, but I don't really think it's necessary. Now this is the turn I realized I won. I know this player doesn't have any good minions, or he obviously would have played them. When he can only use his hero power, that's a really good sign. I also know that this deck runs nothing can stop us, so it's very likely he's holding onto one and he can't make a big board from it because he doesn't have any minions to play it from. And again, luckily for me, I have Burst in this deck, which also acts like a hard removal for his minions. No! But at the time his board was able to keep up with mine, it was too late and he already took too much damage. So I won in the end. The aggro v aggro matchup boils down to two things: how well you control the board and how well you draw. I'd say we both had pretty decent hands, but the problem was the card he was holding in the left side of his hand the whole game. So guess what tip number 3 is? This might seem really boring, but you can see what card your opponent is and is not holding in their hand. You can actually see which cards your opponent is holding from the mulligan. And this goes for you too. Your opponent can see what cards you've been hovering and what cards you draw. And if they're smart, they'll count what card you drew. Let's look at this example from me. I'm holding 2 weapons, but which one should I play? The answer is the one on the right because it's the one I drew from Cagematch Custodian. If I played the one on the left, the opponent knows the one on the right has to be a weapon, and he knows more info about my hand. Which isn't like a game-winning discovery, but it's something you don't want to give your opponent if you don't have to. It's little tips like these that make me rank 5 gold. So boy, we have a long way to go. Okay, we are 1 game away from plat, so let's start talking about the deck. So first, what are we mulliganing for? Well, obviously we're mulliganing for 1-cost minions. For 2-cost minions, you're going to prioritize Cagematch Custodian because that's such a good weapon on turn 3, and if you don't have a Murloc for turn 1, don't keep any of your turn 2 Murlocs, except for maybe Tidehunter. These Murloc support cards aren't good enough to play them on turn 2 to justify you keeping them without a turn 1 Murloc. For spells, I would never keep Lightning Bloom unless you have a combo with it on turn 1. For example, you play Tidecaller, Lightning Bloom, Lushwater Murcenary. Other than that, get rid of it. I wouldn't keep any of the spells unless you have a very specific 1-1-3 curve on the first cards you see. For example, you get a turn 1 Novice Zapper, turn 2 instead of being a Murloc, or if you get lucky, Lightning Bloom into your spell. Basically, it comes down to this. If you're not getting Temple by keeping cards in your hand, you don't need them in your hand. Anyways, let's see how this game is going, and how did you get so low? What the heck? By now, I thought I'd have to change up the deck a little bit and make adjustments, but surprisingly, it's doing just fine. Here, normally I would say, hey, change up the deck a bit, add these cards, do this, do that, but I honestly don't know what I would add to this deck without changing the idea of the deck. What's the idea? A cheap Smork, of course. Right now, we're about halfway to Legend, and the games are just gonna keep getting harder. Looks like I'm gonna have to play extremely well to prove that you can hit Legend with cheap decks. So, when does this become a waste of time? Here is my deck tracker so far. It's missing a few games because I forgot to turn it on for some games, so don't worry about that. If I somehow get below 45% win rate for this deck, I'll stop using it. Yes, you heard that right. I am not going to stop until my win rate drops almost in half. That is how determined I am. Yep, that was a 3-game loss streak you just saw. I think that's a great segue to the not so good parts about this deck. First, let's go over the biggest weakness. The moment you lose board presence, you're pretty much done. Since there's no good refill options for this deck that are cheap enough to put in, if you fail to beat your opponent in one burst, or at least get them low enough for your burst to win, then you might as well concede right then and there. This leads me to the other big weaknesses of this deck, the matchups. More specifically, these classes, and more specifically than that, these cards. First Day of School and Paladin is such a problem because not only does it give it 2 1-cost minions, but it's also the class with the buffs, meaning I need to take care of these cards or else I'll get some good value traits. Rogue is more simple, they have a lot of removal that's cheap, and they play watch posts. Just saying, I told you watch posts would be good. This brings me to tip number 4, which is know when you have lost. I'm not saying if you see a paladin or a rogue or a mage, but we get to that later in the video, that you should just concede. But if you feel like you're in a position where it's impossible where you should come back from, just concede and try again. Remember, it's not the win rate of your deck, but it matters how many games you can play with that win rate. Being able to play more means you can win more. Or lose more, but you get the point. Okay, I've been at rank 6 for the last half an hour, and I've gotta say, I'm pretty Hearthstoned out. Just guess how long I was playing for today. I played Hearthstone for 5 hours today. 5 hours today! Most people don't have enough time to do that, but luckily for me, I guess I sit inside all day and do nothing. Oh. This might not end up being a challenge based on how good the deck is, but how long my sanity will last while playing the same deck over and over again. Anyways, I ended the second day at the Platinum rank 3, and the biggest problem wasn't the deck being bad, but my motivation to continue playing the game. Alright, I think I found my most hated deck now. This deck is so stupid. They have a card which draws 2 cards for free. What the? I think I've hit what I'm gonna call the wall. What's the wall, you ask? When the deck runs a 50% win rate, you start to stay around the same rank. Also, 4 of my last 6 games were against Spell Mage, and I can already tell I'm sick of that deck. Even though I'm slowing down, I'm not gonna give up. I am determined to at least get Plat 5. Okay, I'm one game away from rank 5, and let's see how it goes. It's against a druid, which thankfully isn't a mage. And he skips turn 1, which is a great sign, and it's turn 2, and now he... Okay, insane comeback time. Are you ready for this? Let's play a few cards. Yeah, the board is even now. It's his turn. Oh. Is there even a point of showing you the rest of the game?
One eternity later.
Okay, I took a long break and I'm back for my games today. I won a quick hunter game and I'm here back against a rogue. And boy, look at the starting hand. Still, it's a rogue, which is going to be a tough matchup. And what did I say? How can he do all that in one turn? I am so sick of this deck. Oh my gosh. As I'm approaching a 50% win rate for this deck, let's have a little heart-to-heart. I play Hearthstone because I like doing stupid things with fun decks, okay? I don't really care about my rank. I'm just here to have a good time, okay? But I think this mage deck is gonna start to break me, I swear. I think we can all agree this card is kind of stupid, let's be honest. Hearthstone actively got rid of a lot of random stuff, and then boom! This card not only makes everything random, but it discounts the cards by 3. Normally, if I noticed I was getting destroyed by one deck, I'd change decks or play something else. But I started this video and I am going to finish it. In this last few days with this deck, I've been so focused on my rank, it's the only thing I care about now. That's not good because I'm losing all enjoyability in this game. I wanted to prove that with any deck you could reach a high rank, and I still believe that. But it's not about getting some rank, it's about enjoying the game. I remember way back when Pirate Warrior was a thing in Cagematch, I was destroying the ladder with it, but I was so bored I gave up at rank 1. This brings me to my last tip. Rank does not matter at all. I know that's super cheesy and whatever, but if a deck has a 50.1% win rate, you're going to hit Legend eventually. But the problem is, what happens when you hit Legend? Are you going to feel happy for that little bit and then quit the game because you hate it so much? I'll be honest, I'm about ready to give up and stop making this video. I'm hating every moment of it. If I'm hating every moment of it, I don't know why I'm playing the game. But like I said, I'm going to keep going until I hit that 45% win rate. Maybe. I'll be honest, I'm not having a very cash money time, as they like to say. I think tomorrow's going to be the last day of this. I'm just so sick of this mage deck. Maybe there's going to be a secret mage counter deck in the future. Normally I'd say something like foreshadowing, but I don't know how to counter this deck yet, so we're going to wait.
I'm joking! Stop!
And with that game, I went from one game away from rank 5 to the bottom of rank 10. I really wanted to get rank 5, but at this rate, I don't think I'm going to. I noticed a lot of decks in Hearthstone are becoming less and less aggressive, and I'm okay with that. It's just the non-aggressive decks, they somehow end up being aggressive with those swing turns they get. Still, I am going to keep going with this deck until the very end.
And this! What's he doing?
Alright, here with that loss, I have to admit something. I didn't make it as low as 45% win rate. Oh, okay, hear me out. I don't think it's even possible to get that low with this deck. I played around 100 games with this deck and I'm teetering a 50% win rate. Literally 51-51 win-loss ratio. There were two main points for this video. One, with a deck with a 50.1% win rate, you will eventually hit Legend. That's just how math works, I think. It's not about how good the deck is, but it's about how much time you put into playing that deck. And I'm not willing to play this deck any further because it leads me to point 2. It doesn't matter how good the deck is if you're not having fun playing the deck. I know that sounds really cheesy and cliche, but it's true. I played 100 games of this deck, and a generous average for this game time is about 5 minutes per game. So let's just say I spent 500 minutes playing this deck, and I am so sick of it, I don't even want to look at it anymore. In the end, I know it's not about the rank, and I truly believe that. What's the point of playing a game if you're not having fun? To answer the main question of the video, this 800 dust deck got me to the highest rank of Platinum 6. But in reality, I could go as high as I want if I put enough time into it. Now, do I think the deck's good? For something that costs about the same amount as 2 epics, I think it's really good. But it's going in the long forgotten reaches for now. I cannot look at this deck anymore. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. The deck list is in the description like always, so you can try that out. Tell me how that goes. See if you can get a higher rank than I did. If you liked the video, why not give it a thumbs up and subscribe? I've got a lot more deck list ideas that I know you're going to enjoy. And I know this time it's not going to be restricted by budget anymore, so don't worry, we're going to have a lot more cards. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.